So we have 4 awesome people who are here to talk to us. So I'm just going to have them tell me their name, what is their job, and where they're from. We're going to ask more about your job in a second. So just say your job and your name.
I'm Kathy Campbell. I'm an executive creative director, and I'm from here in Half Moon Bay.
Hi, my name is Beverly Joy. I'm the assistant director of human resources at the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. I'm born and raised in Lahaina, Maui, and recently relocated here.
Hello, my name is Karen Riley Grant. I do all kinds of marketing things. Can't wait to talk to you all more about that today. I'm actually from the East Coast, from a small town in the Panhandle, Florida, and now live here in El Dorado.
My name is Miguel Fonseca, otherwise known as DJ High Top, you guys, and I'm from the greatest city in the world, and it ain't New York, it's San Francisco.
Awesome. So for the first question, how did you get into this field? What steps did you take to get to where you are now?
I went to UCLA, and I graduated in communication studies, and I started in advertising as an account executive, so it was more on the business end of things. And after about 4 or 5 years in that, I wasn't liking it very much, and I was loving what all the creative people were doing in their offices. So I went back to school at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and then that started my career as a creative director in the creative side of advertising and branding.
For me, I graduated from University of Hawaii in Manoa in 2019, and then started my career as through the Marriott Voyager program, which is a management training program. It's a 1-year program where you work throughout the hotel and kind of determine what discipline you might like the best. I worked in that about a year, and then slowly just progressed my career within HR.
My journey started in high school. I've always worked in fashion. It's been a huge passion of mine, so I actually started working at a surf shop, like my version of NorCal in the town of Brooklyn. Always loved clothes, always loved fashion. Started working on the shop floor at the Gap store back in my hometown, and then just started to kind of continue to progress. I was really interested in learning more about the fashion industry, what happened kind of behind the curtains of the big headquarters. So moved out to San Francisco a long time ago, and worked at the Gap corporate office here, just doing, really learning the ropes. And then from there, I went from Gap to Levi's, from Levi's, went to Converse, so I just love brands, I love clothes, I have a very short amount of brands that I really love. And I really just love to understand how it worked. Always in marketing, so I got to do things from TV commercials to print advertising, and then as social platforms started to kind of obsess what happens on Instagram and TikTok and all the fun things that make kids like you guys excited about brands. And then lived in Asia for a little bit, working for Levi's, and then came back here a couple of years ago. So it's been a really interesting journey, but I just kind of always loved clothes. I always wanted to discount clothes. I didn't want to pay full price, and that, to be totally honest, is what got me into my job when I was 16, and just kind of continued on my path.
I'm a thrift shopper, is that okay? Okay, cool. My passion is music. That's it. Anybody that decides they want to be a DJ, then they should love music. When I say music, I mean all kinds of music, not just one particular genre. So my DJ journey started when I was 16 at George Washington High School in San Francisco. Started DJing house parties, and then that went on to school dances, which is my world. Middle school, elementary, and high school. Just DJed the biggest homecoming dance I've ever done in my whole life. It had 1,900 students at this dance, like a sea of students out there. But they all had a good time because I played the songs they wanted to hear. Play requests only. I barely graduated high school, and since I barely graduated high school, I felt that school really wasn't my thing, so I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, got sent out to Saudi, but that's a whole other story, you guys. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, awesome. So for the next question, what does a typical day look like for you going to work?
That is an interesting question, because in the creative world, there isn't really a typical day. Karen and I do very similar things. So in marketing and advertising and branding, It's all about reaching your customer, reaching your audience with a specific message in a specific way. So we start with a creative brief, and that's basically, what are we trying to do, what are we trying to say, and what kind of action are we trying to prompt with what we're doing. So it could be a social media post, it could be a television commercial, it could be a small film, it could be a guerrilla posting out in the city somewhere. So every day is really, really different. It could be an event, so all the big events that you go to, like South by Southwest, brands show up there and will design an activation or an event space or something. So it really varies, and that's what I love about the creative field. You know, really getting up every single day and doing something completely different every day, and working with a whole bunch of great people who are imaginative and interested in doing different things every day.
For me, a typical day in the Human Resources office is, you know, a lot of emails, meetings, but like she said, it's different every day, right, what you're working on. When you think about human resources, you might think a lot of, you know, computer work and maybe hiring and training, but there are also some funner things to the human resources field. We do all of like the employee engagement. So any of the you know, employee parties or employee celebrations we do manage. So there's a lot more to what you might think human resources is about, but day is always different. Yeah, that's what I can share.
So, typical day in my world usually starts with checking to see who said what about Levi's when I wake up in the morning. Who are Levi's? Did Megan Thee Stallion wear it so here? Did Haley Bieber wear it there? And this is really what I get to do for a job, which is kind of awesome. Sizzle Ward on the stage here, literally obsessed what's happening in the world and where the products are popping up. And we kind of regroup with the team. So, where Kathy's working on the fun magic ideas, my team's on the other side putting together the morning brief. It says, what do we need to do? Where do we need to show up in the world? Whether it's, there are all these channels. And think about everything that you see in the world when you're out there, whether you see it on your Instagram, you have Instagram, or you're in a store, or you see it on a TV spot, or you see it anywhere. It all is very strategic plan put there by us. So we're thinking, what do we need to do? What are the kids we're focusing on? All of these Levi's, 18 to 24, what's a 19-year-old kid doing today? Paris, London, Japan, San Francisco. What is their journey? Where do we need to capture them? What are all those channels? What are all those messages? What should we tee up? And then we work on kind of a plan. That's brief. It goes to a creative agency. Their numbers, how many people do we need to get to the Levi's website? Or how do we need to get them to TikTok? So it's a real calculated journey. It's kind of a science behind all of the things that you see. I look at a lot of numbers, not so exciting, but really important. So there's kind of reports that go to the leadership teams. So if you like numbers and spreadsheets, I love them personally. It's kind of the biggest. When we look at the numbers, how are we doing? Are we beating Nike? Are we beating Aerie? What is the competition doing out there? Are we getting out into the world? Sometimes we'll take our teams to the stores. We'll go to Stanford Shopping Center and shop in the stores. Sometimes we'll get on a plane, go to New York, or we'll go to Coachella. Really, it's a job. Let's go see what's happening. Let's literally walk the shows and see what kids are wearing today. So it's a lot of keeping your finger on the pulse of what your consumers doing, how are they behaving, what is the competition doing, what are the numbers, what do we need to do to have in place, and then put it out the world and get up the next day and do it again and again. So I would say the day is never always the same. It's super exciting. That's why I love the world we get to live in. I love the products and the brands, but it's really exciting. It's kind of like a bit of psychology here, understanding how the consumer ticks, what it is that they need, what they're anticipating, how to best serve their needs.
I don't even have anything to say after that, 'cause that was really good, okay? My day consists of, I belong to a whole bunch of different record pools, DJ record pools, digital record pools, and I get all this new music in daily. So my day is listening to new songs, making sure they don't have bad stuff in them, and also working on the songs. Whenever I DJ a school dance, I always get requests from you guys. That's how I learn. You know, no DJ knows everything, no DJ has everything. So I actually learn from you guys, get those songs, and if there's a song that I don't have, when I get home, I download it, listen to it, put it on the operating table if I need to, edit out all the bad stuff so that when I play at another school, I can play the song and not get in trouble. So my day is music prep. When you see a DJ at a school dance, don't think that you just showed up. There's, well, the good ones anyway, there's a lot of prep that goes into it, so that's what I do.
Awesome. So for the next question, I think as being a high schooler or a middle schooler, we kind of feel this pressure to know what we want to do in the future, but I think that it's important that people listening now know that we don't have to know what we want to do. So what is one piece of advice you would give your 17-year-old self?
Well, first of all, I know what I want to be when I grow up, and that's a DJ. McDowell shows, it's awesome. You don't have to know what you need to do, or what you want to do as a career. It's very, very clear with all the technological innovation that is happening. Number one, y'all are going to invent something that's going to be amazing and change the world. But number two, when you get into your field, there are careers that don't even exist today that will be your job. So like, the biggest advice I could say is follow your passion. Do what you love, and again, I lived in Miguel. You don't have to follow a path that is prescribed by what is expected of you. Really try to follow your passion, and that is the best advice I can give. And my sort of shift that went from kind of the business side of things to the creative side of things was a result of me thinking I had to go in and be an account executive and do this business stuff. And you really, really should follow your heart. And that there's a saying, do what you love and the money will follow. So don't try to go after the highest paying job or even the sexiest job. If you love math, go into something that really requires math. And again, there are a lot of opportunities that innovations in the future will afford to you that we can't even imagine right now. Like, you're the future right here, and it's pretty exciting to see.
So I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do even throughout college. Went to school for business, not hospitality. Took about 6 months off after graduating to kind of just serving tables, making money. And then applied for the Voyager program again, which is just like basically like a paid internship with Marriott, and kind of just took the leap and saw where it was going to take me. It's very cool, Marriott within the hospitality, any industry like that. They have a lot of opportunities for growth and movement. So that's really something that intrigued me for sure. Something that some advice that I could give, even that I tell myself every day is, don't make any decisions when you're having a bad day or a bad week. Let yourself have those days. It makes the better days better. And if you're feeling some type of way about maybe your career step or you don't want to do this anymore, give yourself a week or a month to kind of sit on that and think about that. Just don't make those decisions when you're in those bad headspaces.
Wait, we have a quick question.
I have a question, Beverly. Can you just explain a little bit about what human resources is? I think a lot of students in the room probably don't know some of the lingo.
Yeah, of course. So human resources is kind of the employee lifeline or employee partnership throughout your employment career with a certain company. We kind of bridge the employer standpoint, like the employer and the employee. We're kind of that third party that assists you through any kind of challenges or successes you're going through. We do hiring, or we support leaders or management with hiring, training, maybe some opportunities or disciplinary action conversations. We do benefits, training, engagement, like what I talked about, employee parties, employee celebrations. Anything that happens throughout a company, there's most likely a little bit of HR, there's someone in HR giving a hand in that. So we do a lot, more behind the scenes, but yeah, it's definitely a fulfilling job.
Feel free, if you have questions, to raise your hand if you have any questions in between people, because they would be happy to.
Sorry, that really is a follow-up as long as we're talking about HR. HR is actually who does the hiring, right? So a lot of students here, when they maybe soon they're going to be applying for jobs, they're going to interviews. So do you
So, I mean, let's start with the application process, right? I would say make sure that you're applying for a job that you actually are interested in. Don't just, shoot your resume out on any kind of like open position on Indeed or LinkedIn. And the biggest thing I can say about interviews or when you're applying is make sure that you're doing the effort as far as like networking goes and connecting goes, whether that be in LinkedIn or even at these career panels similar to this. And then as far as interviewing, do your research, don't come unprepared. Know what company you're applying for, know their culture, know their brand standards, and be able to speak to them. You can find a lot of resources online. We live in that generation. So do your research and be prepared, and be able to answer those questions that they're going to ask.
We could spend a whole session just on what Beverly talked about. Any other questions on interviews before we go back? Because I think even LinkedIn, what LinkedIn is, I'm really curious to, that's a platform y'all use. Alright, so your question originally was, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like a piece of advice for your 17-year-old.
I'd say the journey is not linear. Like spoiler alert, took one marketing class in college. I was told by my science teacher in high school that I was good at sciences and more women were needed in sciences. So I said, okay, I'm going to apply to the School of Engineering, which I did. And I went to the School of Engineering and I was miserable. I was miserable. And I remember having a class next to these super smarties. And we had to talk about our summer job and I was a lifeguard. And I was like, I was a lifeguard, and da-da-da-da. The guy next to me says, I worked on something called the World Wide Web. And this is before. And I was like, this is, I don't really know what I'm doing in this class. It was like mind-blowing and it was really hard and I did not enjoy it. I took a beat and I reassessed my situation. I loved fashion. I loved it. And so I went into internships. I asked, can I work here? Can I work there? I got myself to San Francisco. And I found an area that I loved, and that became, I've always been in this world since my first job in school as internships and out of school. So I'd say just listen. I mean, again, you'll hear this very similar kind of beat here, like follow what you love, it'll have twists and turns. You never know. When someone taps you on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you did this, you go, really? And then you try, I love this, I have no idea. So I think just being open to literally whatever can come your way. And if you think on paper it's a good idea and you don't feel it in your core, it's not a good idea. Like literally just, it does work out. It sounds super cliche, but it does work out when you follow your heart.
That's good. Does anyone here have a part-time job? A couple hands went up. All right. For those of you guys that have part-time jobs, do you like your jobs? And so yeah. 65% of all working Americans do not like their jobs. How many of you guys have parents that don't like their job? You hear when they come home from work every day? Raise your hand. Okay, so I'm glad that not that many hands went up, because that means your parents do like their jobs. Well, I represent the 35% of Americans that do like their work. I love my work so much, it's hard for me to go to sleep the night before I have a school dance. I'm that excited. You know what I mean? I absolutely love what I do. So, my advice to you guys, and you guys have already heard it from the other panelists, if you can, do what you love. Now, when you do what you love, it may not have a big monetary return. You may not make a lot of money, but that doesn't matter. If you do what you love, the money doesn't matter. So that would be me.
Awesome. So I think kind of playing off of that, is there any time you've taken a risk and you failed or done something that you put yourself out there and it just didn't work out?
That's sort of back to my original career path, and I'd love to hear the other, what's going on? What's going on over there?
It wasn't me. She started it.
My original career path, I was doing the wrong thing. And it was really miserable. I was in advertising, but I was sort of on the business side of advertising. And I was working in the automotive industry. I was working on the Armor All account. I don't know if any of you know Armor All, but it's protected for your car. Anybody who loves cars and waxing and polishing and taking care of their car might know Armor All. And we would go to these big, huge automotive parts and accessories conventions, and all the women there, and this was some years ago when the women were dressed completely scantily, laying on the top of cars in a completely sexist way, and it was so disturbing to me. And here I was representing this brand, and I could not stand the sexism. And so I went to my leadership and I said, listen, it is very uncomfortable for me to be walking around this car show with these scantily clad women all around. And of course, the men were all dressed in, suits and other attire, even tracksuits and whatnot, but the women were all in sort of barely there outfits. And I went to leadership, and it was definitely frowned upon. It was not something that anybody was willing to hear, and that was a risk, and it was a problem, but it was the first inkling for me that I was not in the right place, that I was not in the right field, that I was not in the right industry, and I'm really glad that I took a step away, and I ended up quitting that job and going to back to school and going to art school, almost as a result of seeing this whole industry and the sexism in the industry, and I wanted to get into a position where I could start to shape the thoughts and attitudes and behaviors by the messaging and the creative I was doing, and not just be a part of the existing machine. So I think part of changing what, if you see something that you're in the industry that you're in that you don't feel like is working for you, that to me was one of my big lessons, that either you can stay and really fight the fight if there's openness to change it, or make a pivot, make a move, and change. That's what I.
A time I took a risk, like we talked about, right? I graduated, I kind of was serving tables, making pretty good money, and the internship opportunity came up. It was definitely going to be making less money at that time, and I was in Oahu, which is another island, neighboring island of my hometown in Maui. And I grew up, right in Lahaina, a very small town, just similar to this, one Safeway, 2 gas stations, you name it. And I got the opportunity to actually go back to that hometown and start at the Ritz-Carlton as an intern. For me, that felt like a very big step back personally. I had moved off, out of my parents' home, off to the next place. But that risk for me, taking that job, I took that leap and did it. And then about 2 months later, COVID happened, and our hotel actually shut down for 9 months. So we were all laid off. So that kind of risk for me was definitely difficult. And through that time, it was hard to think, why did I make this decision? But as the hotel industry kind of came back and tourism started coming back to Hawaii, the hotel kind of offered the position back, and we kind of would, and I was able to, rejoin the team, which was great. But again, that risk for me was a lot. There was definitely just a big risk there. And then with COVID happening, it was definitely disappointing. But I think for everybody, not just our industry or me personally. But it's really shaped the career that I've had today. So I wouldn't change anything, but it was definitely for me it felt like a personal setback, but you just gotta keep pushing through, keep driving.
So I think when we talk about jobs and what we're looking for, we talk a lot about the things that we like to do, the deliverables of the job. And I think one of the biggest risks I took was not about, I liked the job and the work I got to do, it was the people and the culture. Because you forget that when you join a team or a company, you're working with all kinds of people that you see sometimes more than your family, which sounds kind of crazy. But you gotta like the people, you gotta like the culture, and it's gotta feel really good when you walk in the door. Like, I like this place, I like who I'm working with, I like my boss, I feel good that I'm contributing here. So for me, I hit a point in my career where none of those things were checking off. I liked the work I got to do, I liked the product, I loved it, but the people wasn't great inside. A lot of toxic. When you're in a toxic environment, you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good. It felt like that every day. And so we had little kids and we had moved, and I am not loving this. And it was a really good decision for us to say, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna leave because this is really great. And we're gonna go live in Costa Rica, really truly happy. We're gonna take a minute out of this corporate thing. And so for me to have a big risk and say, I'm gonna thank you very much for this opportunity. Not for me. And leave was putting my whole career on hold, and that was really scary, really scary. We had 3 little kids, we left, kind of recharged, and then I moved back to the Bay Area. I'm like, I gotta start from scratch. I just took some time off, and that's scary because you live in the Bay Area, you can't kind of just float along, you gotta work hard. This is a tricky place, right? It's expensive. And so after a couple of years, it was really scary. And I reconnected with some old colleagues, and I was able to land a job, and then I didn't look back. But that was a really hard decision. Do I love this job? I love what I get to do every day. I don't like the environment I'm working in, and it doesn't feel good. And to say, I'm gonna say thank you, no thank you, and move was really hard. But it kind of worked out. Again, you gotta kind of follow your intuition, you know. And if you hit a situation that doesn't feel right, you gotta take it to your own hands and change that path.
Wait a minute. Creep up on her. Okay. She woke up. Now I'm gonna give you something to keep you awake. Because the Taylor Swift hat for you, okay? She was knocked out, so I'm like, all right, I want to make sure she's up when I'm talking, okay? My risk was, after getting laid off from 2 different jobs, and it sucks to get laid off from a job, let me tell you. It makes you doubt yourself, makes you lose your confidence if you had it to begin with. And so I was already DJing as a side hustle, if that's what you want to call it. So my risk was going full-time, self-employed. And it was hard at first because I didn't know how to market myself, right? So a friend of mine drafted up a flyer for me. This is old school mailer. I did mailers and I mailed them to where? My target audience. And my target audience is you guys, schools. I mailed these flyers out to probably about 500 schools throughout the whole Bay Area. And I started getting calls and emails, you know? And in business, you guys, in business, the best business is repeat business. If you go to a restaurant, you like the food, you're gonna go back. If you have a good experience with a DJ, you're gonna call them back. So that's what I strive for. I try to make it so good of an experience that they'll want me back for another dance. So my risk was not wanting to work for a corporate or work for anybody else, but to work for myself. And thank God, it has worked out.
Awesome, thank you so much. So are there any questions from the audience? Okay, we'll go here first.
How much do you make per year?
We were warned about this question. After all of us saying you gotta do what you love and the money doesn't matter. It's very interesting because there are ranges, and I would say in the creative field, you can start out at $80,000 in your first job per year, and you can go up to a starting salary of $120,000 your first year in the creative field. It really depends on your experience, and if you do social media advertising, and if you are responsible for the social media account of anything, that counts as experience. If you have a TikTok that has 2 million followers, that counts as experience. So any of these little things that you do as a creative, if you're an illustrator, if you design characters for games in your free time or whatever, it depends on your portfolio. So really any of those interesting little creative things that you do, they're now absolutely marketable in a job. So do whatever you can. If you love creativity and you love illustrating or you love designing or you love doing social media and you love your TikTok account and you love cutting those little films for your TikTok account, that stuff all is great experience for getting into the creative field now, and you can leverage that to negotiate for a higher salary when you start.
What a question. I think, what I'll say on that question is, don't make a decision for career based on the salary opportunities, right? Because for me, starting the internship, I think I started at $17 an hour, right? It was an hourly role. I definitely took a pay cut. But throughout the years, the progression and the salary has definitely increased. So, make those decisions based on the industry. Like if you truly are out for making that biggest salary, just make sure that industry or that company that you're working with can actually, make those things happen. You can't go into, a mom and pop or a small business thinking that you're going to make, these crazy salaries, right? Like make those salary expectations. When you're making those salary expectations, make sure that you're looking in the right places. But again, I don't recommend going out and searching for a career that's going to make you the most money. You also need to do the work, right? You're not going to walk in first day and be offered, a six-figure salary. You need to be able to kind of start from the bottom and work your way up. And networking also, like I talked about, is a big, big, big part of that. So, do the work in the beginning and know that it's going to take, 5-10 years to get to where you want. And don't be discouraged when you initially get an offer that maybe isn't, this big expectation that you have. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. To revert to this too, I, at Salesforce, work on brand values and social good, so a lot of climate work and a lot of equality work and philanthropy and social impact. And so I just wanted to make sure there is also a distinction between a big corporate salary and a big corporation that might pay you tons of money and the nonprofit world where the salaries are much lower, but you get to do that soul-fulfilling, heartwarming work that is really great in the climate space, in environmental work, in social justice. Those things can pay far, far, far less, but your fulfillment and your ability to make a huge impact on the world is so much greater. So I will absolutely echo the thought of don't make decisions based on money at all. Make decisions based on what you want to do and the impact you want to have, and the money will come around later.
Also think about the whole package, right? It's not just based on the salary. You've got to think about your benefits for you and your family, the 401k or retirement savings that they can offer, discounts that might come along with working at certain companies. So it's not just based on that salary. You need to look at it as a whole compensation package and do your research on what that means before accepting anything.
I'll build on that. I think, especially looking at the Bay Area, there are lots of startups, right? And there's a big corporation like a Salesforce or Levi's, big companies, and the salary range, yes, is like 60, 70 to start, all the way up to $200,000, depending on what your role is. But the makeup can look different. So if you're that entrepreneurial spirit and you really want to join that startup and they're in seed, you get something called, who knows? Has everyone ever heard of equity? Yeah, equity. So equity stocks, right? So they may say, hey, your salary is going to be this much. We're going to pay you $80,000, but we're still growing. We're not public yet. We're like, still raising money. We're going to give you equity in the company, and you can own a piece of the company. How cool is that? So the package and the makeup are so many things than just what you need. But to be clear, we know you get bills to pay. So you got to make a certain amount to pay your car bills and turn your lights on and all that stuff. But really look at the total package, and something super exciting, especially in this area, for those of you with those entrepreneurial spirits, is find a company you can buy and have a little bit of ownership. It's super cool, and it changes the makeup. Not to overly confuse you, but make you more excited, hopefully.
Don't rule out the trades, you guys. I managed an apartment building I live in San Francisco. Refrigerator not working. And they can't find, there's one guy that they work with, he's 79 years old, and he works for himself, and he's maxed out, like he has work for the rest of the year, because there's not that many people that know how to work on refrigerators and ovens and appliances, so don't rule that out, you guys, and not just work in that trade, but you can even own your own business and call your own shots and set your own hours. Do not rule out the trades. Carpenters, electricians, plumbers, man, there's tons of work in those fields, and not just like AI and all the technical stuff. So no disrespect to that stuff, but let me tell you something, lots of work out there in the trades business, and you guys can own your own companies by doing so. So once I said it before and I'll say it again, when you do what you love, The money may not come, but that doesn't matter because as long as you make enough money to pay your bills, you'll be okay. So, and that's what I do.
Awesome. So there was another question.
Are there people working internationally at Salesforce?
Oh yes, Salesforce is a global company and there's offices all around the globe. I think there are 80,000 employees. So yes, huge offices in London and Ireland and South Asia and South America. Yeah, tons of different offices. And that's another thing too, I will say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I love the idea of traveling internationally because there is so much more opportunity now to do so, particularly after the pandemic with remote working. There are a lot of companies who don't require you to come into the office at all, and there's either remote possibilities or hybrid possibilities where you go into the office sometimes and you work from home sometimes, and you can always transfer to other offices, and so that's a really, really exciting opportunity if you're interested in travel, is working for a foreign company, as Karen did. So
I'm super passionate about this, but it did lead me to the idea as you're looking at internships or jobs, ask these questions when you're sitting with the HR person. Say, hey, do you have development opportunities outside the country? Do you have development opportunities? Think about what you may want to do and ask all those questions because the world of hybrid working and Zooms and Teams and I hired folks in Bangalore, India to work on the San Francisco team or London. There's so much opportunity. So if that's something that you want to do, look into it. We did not raise our hands and say, I'll move our family to Asia, let's go. We did it. But they need that. So if that is something that's like have that travel itch and trust me, you have it and you love it, ask those questions and you'll be really surprised, I think pleasantly surprised at what potentially could be open up for you. Okay, I saw some questions. I saw a hand over here and a hand.
Do you have any development activities like outside of the country, like being a DJ?
Oh, good question. I did do a school in London. I don't know how they found out about me, but they flew me over there and I rocked it out over there. In business, everyone, the best form of advertisement is what? What's the best form of advertisement? It's also the cheapest. Doesn't cost a dime. Yes? No, social media is second. Word of mouth. When your friend tells you about something and you get excited about it, the first thing you're going to do is look it up. So that's when social media comes in handy. But word of mouth is the best, and it's also the cheapest form of advertisement. It's absolutely certified gold. Let me ask you guys something. Is anyone here right now, whether you're 8th grade, in fact, shout out to my 8th graders and my seniors because you guys represent the class of 24. 24 is my favorite number because my birthday is February 24th, so next year is going to be epic. 24 is going to be epic, you guys. 8th graders, seniors. Hey, does anyone here have an idea, just an idea of what you want to do after you graduate high school? Yes? Yeah, you can stand. Arts, you hear that? Yes. Okay, is that your passion? Okay, love it. Whoa, we have a young entrepreneur here, I love it. Have you purchased like your first car yet and got your own apartment yet, or? Super cool. Okay, I want to ask you guys a quick question. When it comes to work, how many of you would rather work at home or out in the field somewhere? If you'd rather work at home, raise your hand. How many of you would like to be out of the house working? Raise your hand. Yeah, me too.
I thought there was a couple more over here. Any more questions?
So what do you think is one trait that you think is like really important for you to have to like be successful and for like companies to want to hire you?
That's a really good question, and I like 4 or 5 came to mind. But I think I think for myself, what I think has kind of propelled me, and also when I look at my team, those that really stand out, is drive, real authentic drive that is just kind of comes from your soul, and I think that helps kind of with just the perseverance and resilience and kind of determination. But I think that real drive, that I want that, and I see that come through my team, and it just is like this beautiful, magical kind of path that kind of comes from there. But really good question. But I'd say my number one is just that real authentic drive. That
I think the ability for me, like one of the traits that we'll look at for sure, is the ability for somebody to like admit when they're wrong or ask for help. Being able to be collaborative, like even if you're not gonna agree with what maybe your leader or your coworker is saying or proposing, being able to have those conversations and know it might not go your way, it might not go that way, but being able to still be a team player and support the idea that's agreed on, I think that's huge for me. Every team that I've worked in, like collaboration has been like the most important thing, and being open to somebody saying, we're not gonna go your way, or maybe let's think about it differently. I think that's like a big thing for me.
I have 2, and one of them, the top one for me, especially over the course of the last 4 years, is resilience. And COVID transformed everything for everyone, everywhere, businesses, the world, society, customers, everything. And there were people in the organization who were like, oh, I know what we can do, let's try this, let's do this other thing. And there were other people who were senior, experienced, and really good at their jobs who were just paralyzed and they didn't know what to do. At Salesforce, we had a massive events team, and there were probably, I don't even know, 300 people on the events team that were live in-person events, which all went away instantly overnight when COVID came. So that whole team had to pivot and do online events and figure out how to create an interesting online event that was as exciting as being at Moscone Center with 200,000 people. So that ability just to adapt and be resilient is huge. And then the second thing is, I think this is really, really something that I've seen, because I've been in my career for over 30 years, a long, long, long time, and I have done a lot, and I'm super, super experienced, and it is humility. Because I can walk into a room and have done this thing like 100,000 times before, and there is a new idea that I didn't even consider, and for me to say to my team, wow, I didn't even consider that. I have this whole plan lined out of what we're doing and where we're going and the plans we were making, and I'm just gonna sit down and let you guys take over because that was a way better idea. So I think you're probably curious and have the beginner's mind and have sort of that openness that comes from being new in the field. But us, people that have been around for a while, it's a little harder to be humble, but I think that humility is great even to start out with. You don't always have all the answers, you don't have the right answer, and as Beverly said, it's like, as soon as you can stand up and you can present your case and you can propose your point of view, which I'm a huge fan of. Everyone, please use your voice and make sure that your opinion is heard. But as soon as the decision is made, sit down, be humble, and commit to that decision.
The pandemic taught us, let me tell you something. Have a backup plan, because I didn't. So for 17 months, you guys, 17 months, I didn't have a backup plan. And that was the worst days of my life. Not doing what you love, not making any money, not having any income for 17 months really hurt. I even lost my will to live. I wasn't gonna self-terminate. I would never self-terminate, and I didn't care if I lived or died, to be honest with you. So, have a backup plan. Quick question. Does anyone here like Bad Bunny? Does anyone here even know who Bad Bunny is? No hands went up. You do? You do? For reals? What's your name? Adriana? Adriana, okay. Can I give you a Bad Bunny shirt? Does anyone here like Ice Spice? Can I give you an Ice Spice hat? Is anyone here 4.0? Okay, so for my 8th graders and my high school seniors, I just want to say this. I'm going to give you guys, because I'm not sure if I'm going to see you guys again, I'm going to give you guys an early congratulations. Congratulations to the class of 2024.
Okay, so we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. Okay, we'll do just 2.
What was challenging during the process of getting your jobs?
I can start there. Like first job ever? I think the first job, I think the serious part was knowing, like, is this the right thing? Like the doubt, right? It kind of clouds your mind. Like, am I making the right decision? For me, I had to move away from my family. And so that was this is before I had kids. And that decision was, is this the right thing to do? I'm going to leave the people I know, I'm going to go have this job, and I don't know if this is the right thing. And I think that insecurity and unknown and new territory and all the stuff that comes with that was really unsettling. But I think knowing that and getting really kind of at peace with, I love what this provides me, I love this opportunity for this job, didn't really look back. But I think those initial concerns of, is this the right thing to do? That really kind of got me first.
Any other questions? Yes. Are there online courses for anything that anyone here does? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
The whole world is changing. There's so much
Right.
online that really can help.
Yeah, everything is online. Good question now. By the way, you guys, just real quick, I'm gonna tell you what a teacher told me in school. I started out by saying, you know, this is a dumb question, and my teacher stopped me. He said, there's no such thing as a dumb question, because when you ask any question, it means that you thirst knowledge. So ask away, you guys. We only have a couple minutes left.
Did any of you have an answer to the first question besides Karen?
The hardest thing about starting your first job, to me, both in the interview process and starting the job, how much of my authentic self to bring to the job versus how professional I was supposed to be. And way back when I started, bringing your authentic self to work wasn't as much of a thing as it was now. And thank God there's far more room to be loud and to have hair like this. I actually had somebody say, we're gonna have to get rid of that hair. In one of my earlier jobs. And you're just like, of course now we go to HR and we take, can you believe what somebody said about my hair? But there is that balance always of sort of what you think is a professional sort of countenance and your true self. You giggle a lot, you're fun to be around, you're loud, you're quiet, you're shy, all the different things, bring that to your job. Of course you have to be professional. And then the culture of the job is super important too, as Karen said. Make sure you try to get a feel for the culture, but bring your whole authentic, real self to that job, and you will be much, much happier than if you're pretending and trying to be somebody that you're not. Which, again, in my first job, that was my hardest thing: is should I try to be this professional, you know, dorky corporate person, or should I be me? I ended up learning that lesson pretty well.
We're gonna call it for right now. So that is the end of our career panel for today. If you have any further questions, they will be here for a little bit after. So come on up, ask them whatever questions that didn't get answered, and we'll give a round of applause to our career panelists.